Welcome to Johnny Freaking Fantasy, a podcast I'm going to start that hopefully is a little bit different than your standard podcast and your standard fantasy news reports. I'm going to give you some offensive Week 4 ads that I think are some pretty good ads, and I like to give a little bit of speculation. I'm not gonna give you the same guys that you'll find on ESPN or Yahoo. Some of them might overlap, but that's just because those are guys that I think that you should guarantee go and get. But then I'm going to focus more so on the individual defensive player aspect. As time has passed, me doing individual defensive player leagues for 6 years now, I've noticed that Yahoo rankings have been completely skewed. You have guys that are just cornerbacks that don't even make tackles, that are returning punts, that are projected more points than guys like Fred Warner, Darius Leonard, those up-and-comers that are really stuff in the middle and making plays and getting tackles, and I find that outrageous, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So I kind of wanted to start individual defensive players. But before we do that, I'm going to talk about the pickups for Week 4 for our offense, and I'm going to rank these by best value or priority, you could say. And number 1 coming in is going to be Calvin Ridley. Go pick him up in every league that you have. Obviously, if you didn't realize the week before, Week 2, when he had a big game, that Steve Sarkisian's given him looks. Julio Jones taking pressure off that offense, is taking pressure on, I should say, and really opening things up for him has really been a revelation. And I obviously, as many others, think that he's going to be a great player for them, and not only this year but for his career with that 7-catch, 146-yard, 3-touchdown outing in Week 3. What an amazing outing that was. I should be hearing a lot about him this year. Number 2 is going to be Tyler Boyd, who looks like the number 2 primed receiver. The Bengals, Clareton native, respect to that. It's my dude. Now, with John Ross not showing up at all, it looks like his job to lose for number 2. But keep in mind, we have A.J. Green hobbling, so that could potentially bring him to the number 1 receiver for Cincinnati this week. But we'll see if he can handle the pressure. I think he can. He's a good dude. Number 3, Mike Williams. I wasn't a big believer on him. He's kind of been inconsistent in his career for me to really believe the hype. However, he looks like past Tyrell Williams to be their number 2 receiver. Chargers are going to be thrown a lot. You know that. Phillip Rivers has been thrown so much over the years, and they're always seeming down and losing games. So I think Phillip Rivers probably tosses another one, and they're down and throwing garbage time. So I think Mike Williams should have a good Week 4. He's a good pickup. Next, we're going to talk about, I like this guy. His name's Jakeem Grant. Not many people know about Jakeem Grant. Actually, he's a wide receiver, but he gets looks out of the slot. He gets looks everywhere. They kind of move him around. They give him shovel passes. And if you watch Red Zone or if you watch highlights, Miami Dolphins 3-0, by the way. Wow, who would have thought that? I can't believe it. Jakeem Grant, to me, he's like a poor man's Tyreek Hill. To me, 3-4 years ago, I think it was 2012, we were in the same situation with Jarvis Landry. The dude was in the slot. He was a rookie. He was a slot receiver. He really wasn't making many catches, but he was getting looks, and he was a starter. And I was in a league where I had return yards on at the time. I picked him up on the hunch that he was going to do well. Not only did he turn into a great slot receiver, but great number 2 there, and returned some great value for me. So I think Jakeem Grant, the poor man's Tyreek Hill, can be a good pickup for you. Number 5, Christian Kirk. I think it's a good dart throw to me. Not many people are going to talk about him this week, but if you watched late in the game when Rosen came in, he had good chemistry with him, and I think it was 3 targets for him while on 2 possessions. That's good numbers for Christian Kirk, the rookie, and obviously the talent's there. See if he can put it together. Number 6, running back Aaron Jones. This guy should definitely be owned in every one of your leagues. I think if he's not, you need to go pick him up. Run, don't walk to get him. I think that Jamal Williams, he unfortunately had his time to shine, but didn't do much with it. He looks like more of a passing back anyhow, and it looks like they're going to move Ty Montgomery out to wide receiver to give Aaron Jones more looks. He looked good in the preseason. He was averaging, I think, over 5 yards a carry. His first game back, Week 3, was 6 rushes for 42 yards, and that's if you're a fan of Aaron Rodgers and if you think that the Packers are going to do well this year, that you probably think that they need a running back, and I think that guy's going to be Aaron Jones. And number 7, I have Ronald Jones, another Jones, running back too. Peyton Barber, I believe the hype. He was a sleeper coming in, but he's got just 124 yards on 43 carries the first 3 years. At some point, you've got to think, even with Jones being inactive the first 3 weeks, that something's got to give. I think Jones is their best bet to get rolling there. So I think they're going to have to bring in him to hopefully get Fitzpatrick some help there. He took a beating. And number 8, last but not least for offense, Greg Olsen. He sounds like he's recovering quick from that foot injury. He's good stash to me if you're hurting on tight end. He's not going to play this week. They're coming off a bye, I think week 5, so maybe week 6, week 7 he'll be back. So I think that's a good investment too if he was dropped in your league. So now we're going to shift to the defensive side of things and defensive players. And I want to tell you before that, like I was saying, Yahoo, to me, their ranks aren't very accurate on defensive players. I'm in a league where right now Jadeveon Clowney, he's on waivers. He's the number 1 projected pickup in my league, and right now they have him for week 4. He's projected 14.5 points, and versus a guy like Fred Warner who started for the suspended Reuben Foster and for the 49ers, and he's had 33 tackles. This guy's been a beast. A forced fumble there too, the week 1, and for some reason Yahoo has Fred Warner ranked 2 points less projected than Clowney. That's Clowney 14.5, Fred Warner 12.5. When Clowney, he doesn't have any sacks. He's gotten 5 tackles only. Fred Warner has 33 tackles, which is actually the 3rd most among the league right now. And he's, for some reason, Fred Warner is ranked lower than Jadeveon Clowney. Don't ask me why, but if you're frustrated like I am on that, then please hear me out on my pickups for week 4 for defense. If you're gonna talk, if you're an individual defensive player who does cornerbacks, I'll give you some cornerbacks. Like I said, I don't think they're gonna give you the most points. But if there are definitely leagues that you're starting a cornerback or 2 if that, and these are kind of strong pickups for those people. I really like Brian Poole from Atlanta Falcons. He gets a lot of tackle. He's a hard hitter. He's a big tackler and brings a lot of tenacity. He's got 10 tackles last week versus New Orleans, 23 on the year. And keep in mind, this is a defense who lost Keanu Neal, one of their best players, probably hands down their best player in the secondary. So although different positions, Poole is listed as a corner. He looks like he's getting some production from the loss of Keanu Neal. Denzel Ward, if you're in a league where you have cornerbacks, this guy needs to be owned. Rookie playmaker. So far he's had 17 tackles. He's got a forced fumble and a recover. He's a staple at cornerback, simply stated at that. He's only owned in 8% of leagues. If I need a cornerback, or even if I'm in a league where it's tough, where it's slim pickings per se, at D-back, I'm picking Denzel Ward. Another cornerback for you is a rookie, Dante Jackson. This guy right now is in all of defensive back scoring. He is top 5. And the reason for that is right now he's tied for the league. Get this, as a rookie, he's tied for the league in interceptions with 3 throughout, obviously, 3 weeks, as well as he has 19 tackles. He looks like a great corner play, especially in like I said, leagues that need corners, and just a great start overall. Now we're going to take a look at some safeties, some defensive backs. First is Justin Simmons, the 2016 third rounder. He looks to build on his strong second year in 2017 and is doing just that. He had a first 3 weeks that was very successful. He combined for 18 tackles. Justin Simmons, if he's available, go pick him up. We have Justin Evans he's a defensive back, safety from Tampa Bay. Still, I don't know how, only owned in 8% of Yahoo leagues. Justin Evans was a beast last year. I expect him to be a beast again this year. If someone made the mistake of not picking him up, please go tell them and fix that. Jesse Bates, the third rookie, second rounder out of Wake Forest. This guy's been a model of consistency for Cincinnati. Throughout his first 3 NFL career games as a rookie, he's had 19 tackles, and I think as the year progresses, he'll build onto those numbers. Another safety out of Arizona, we have Trey Boston. The veterans look like a solid playmaker and stopgap for the subpar Arizona defense. look, they're going to get beat on pretty regularly. I think we can come to expect that. And I think that Trey Boston, another guy like Josh Bynes, who's owned in 0% of leagues, Josh Bynes and Trey Boston, I think are fine pickups due to being at the right spot at the right time. Another good pickup as far as that predicament is Tremaine Edmonds, the rookie. I really like him. I have him in a couple IDP leagues, as he's always in the right place at the right time. And that seems to be a trend over in Buffalo. Whether it's Zach Brown, Preston Brown, whoever's in the middle there, Kiko Alonso for some years, Paul Posluszny, it always seems like the middle of Buffalo, because they always get ran on so much, is always a good source, rich source of IDP points. Next, we're going to go into some of our linebackers. Now, let's assume that you didn't draft both rookies Darius Leonard and Fred Warner. Most didn't. However, if you took the insight, you kind of learned about the position that they were in, you know that those really weren't too tough of IDP names to come up with. Darius Leonard, the starting inside linebacker, he won the job in camp. And if you did your research, you'd know that he was the South Carolina State tackle leader in their school history. And so far, that has translated onto the success on the NFL field. He's had 41 tackles through 3 games, which leads the NFL. Then again, you have Fred Warner. Reuben Foster was suspended the first 2 games. If you were on that hunch and you decided to look there for some points, then kudos to you. It paid off, and I am proud to say I did myself. A couple other names. Don't worry if you didn't get Darius Leonard or Fred Warner. That's just the kind of guys that kind of happen during the season. There's going to be plenty more of these guys. Don't worry if you didn't get them off the bat. We still have plenty of ways to improve your defense. I'm going to give you a few. If you're in a shallower league, then there's probably a guy on your waivers named Corey Littleton. He's a linebacker out of L.A., plays for the Rams. He's been a starter for the Rams for the first 3 games, and as a week 3 specifically, he played all 52 defensive snaps. Now, Mark Barron is there, but he's out, so it doesn't look like that Mark Barron's going to interfere with his playing time anytime soon. Keep in mind that's something that we'll keep you updated on throughout this podcast, throughout the weeks, is updates on guys who are injured. Corey Littleton, double-digit tackles for the second time this year. Week 1, he had double-digit tackles as well. And, how could I fail to mention, he also blocked a punt on special teams, so that doesn't hurt either. We have Anthony Hitchens. Like I said, these guys, the first I'm going to name are a couple shallow, deep league guys. If these guys are available, it's probably not the deepest of individual defensive player leagues, but Anthony Hitchens, he's been far better than big-name teammate Reggie Ragland, who I was high on coming on to this year. I thought Reggie Ragland was going to take the middle there, but it looks like Anthony Hitchens has been the better play so far with a team-high 32 tackles. I'm sure the Dallas Cowboys are upset they lost him right now with the way they're looking with Sean Lee. He's going to be out a couple weeks. Speaking of Sean Lee, I really do like the rookie Leighton Vander Esch making plays for the middle, up in the middle for Sean Lee's absence, however long that could be. Jerry Jones came out and said he acknowledges that it does look like Sean Lee will miss some time. How much time that is, we're not sure. However, for the immediate impact of the present, I think that Leighton Vander Esch is in a great place to make tackles. He's already had leagues. He was a former 4-year starter at UCLA, drafted in the 4th round. I like this guy a lot. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. He's tenacious. If you watched him, especially in that Week 2 game versus Cincinnati, he was all over the place on Thursday Night Football. Of course, when C.J. Mosley went out, he was talked about to replace him. That he did in Week 3. He piled up 10 tackles, 8 solos, 2 assists. He could be a great pickup even when Mosley returns. I was a fan, and I'm sure if you've watched football in the last few years, they have had a tough time, Baltimore, trying to replace Zach Orr. On top of that, probably the best thing about Kenny Young is he was a dual sport athlete in college. Not only did he play football, however, he was a member of the UCLA debate team. Matt Milano from Buffalo, as well as Tremaine Edmonds. I think they're both solid plays. I know that Matt Milano has had a tough week too, but look, 21 total tackles through 3 weeks. Looks to be safe as far as his job stability in the middle. And bottom line is, Buffalo is going to get run down their throat. Although they beat the Vikings this week, that's considered a fluke. I think we all know that, and I consider Buffalo to get back to their losing ways this week, leading with Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano, many tackles for them. I do like Tremaine Edmonds a little bit better there. Anthony Walker, I mentioned him before, 0% owned as well for the Colts. He may not be Darius Leonard, but he has 23 tackles in 3 games, so I think he deserves some respect in his own regard. Now, a couple what I like to call my dart throws. These are the real late keepers. Now, I would have put Darius Leonard and Fred Warner up here in this category, but I'm going to give you some guys who are under 5% owned, who I really think that if given a chance, if you hear this name, if you hear them starting, that they really could take off. First and foremost, I want to talk about a guy I was really high on coming into this week. It was Josey Jewell. For those of you who don't know who Josey Jewell is, he's a freak linebacker out of Iowa, rookie. He's always kind of been a playmaker, known to be finding himself around the ball. He had a great preseason with the Broncos. He was rated by Pro Football Focus as a top linebacker in his production in the preseason. Bottom line, I don't think the Broncos are getting good, consistent linebacker play from their inside linebackers. Brandon Marshall and Todd Davis, they're not even healthy. I think that Josey Jewell, I went on the hunch, picked him up, and started him in one of my IDP leagues last week, and he got me 8 combined tackles, which was solid. I do expect him to take more time away from Brandon Marshall and Todd Davis moving forward. I think if Josey Jewell ever got a full-time role in that offense, he could be the next Chris Borland. And I myself picked up Chris Borland when he was going off a few years ago, and I was salivating, to say the least, watching him play every week. Next, I'm going to go with Vontaze Burfict. Now, keep in mind, we all know what type of playmaking skills Burfict has. Now, can he stay on the field? That's the question. Well, he's eligible to return in Week 5, so that's a step in the right direction for him. I would go ahead and scoop him up now if he's available, along with Reuben Foster if he's available too. Chances are your individual defensive league is pretty thin, so you'll need guys making a lot of tackles. Fred Warner, Reuben Foster, great duet over there in 49ers with the San Fran 49ers over in San Fran. Next is I'm going to go with Markel Lee. Now, this is another shot out of a cannon. Nobody knows this guy either. He is actually an inside linebacker for the Oakland Raiders, and he was a top Pro Football Focus grade linebacker in the preseason as well. And although preseason is the preseason, I do see him, he's a second-year thumper. I see him as a good run stopper. Although he doesn't really possess the most sideline-to-sideline speed, he could be in a good situation for tackles should Derek Thomas miss time. Micah Kiser, that's a name to keep on your watch lists. Micah Kiser from the Rams. He's a rookie from Virginia Tech. He also holds the record for the most career tackles in school history. He could be a solid player if the linebacking core struggles or they're not available to play, as a.k.a. a la Mark Barron sits for a while. I think if any injuries happen or struggles occur, Micah Kiser could be a name to keep in the back of your mind. Also, I'm going to go with Jerome Baker, the nice inside linebacker. Although undersized, he is a beast when it comes to tackling. He's a tackling machine. Although Kiko Alonso is there plugging up the middle, he's done a nice job. aiding him in that effort. He's totaled 9 tackles last week in week 3. And if Alonzo missed time, Jerome Baker would be a great add, in my opinion. That's all we have for week 4 on Johnny Frickin' Fantasy. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We will see you around this time next week for week 5 ads. Thanks and have a good night.